Imagine a person brimming with brilliant ideas and ambitious plans, their eyes alight as if born for great achievements. They passionately speak of incredible projects, living in a world of possibilities, yet, remarkably, none of these projects ever reach completion. And there's always an explanation for every setback. The timing wasn't right, the partner wasn't suitable, or the world simply wasn't ready to understand them. Perhaps this is an old friend, a younger brother, a beloved partner, or even a father. Someone who, despite their age, seems stuck in adolescence. An adult man who retains the traits of a boy. Emotional instability, avoidance of responsibility, a quest for freedom, and an escape from any serious commitments. And perhaps deep down, there's a lingering hope that they will change. Psychologists call this phenomenon puer aeternus, the eternal boy. This is an archetype of a man who refuses to grow up, remaining stuck in a transitional state. He seems to be preparing for life but never truly begins to live it. The charm of his youthful energy, creativity, and spontaneity is attractive, but beneath this facade lies an inability to adapt to the real world. The pure expects life to conform to his desires, for others to solve his problems. He creates an image in his imagination of the ideal woman, the ideal job, the ideal life. But when reality doesn't align with his fantasies, he flees, cuts ties, gives up, and returns to the vicious cycle of unfulfilled dreams. He believes himself too special to adhere to routine, but in truth, he is paralyzed by the fear of failure, disappointment, and adulthood. If you've ever had to help such a person, you know the feeling of exhaustion. The weariness from useless advice, wasted support, and attempts to move someone who doesn't want to move. And the most painful part, he makes you feel guilty, as if the problem lies with you, with your high expectations and desire to see him as an adult. But the truth is, this man is trapped in an illusion of freedom that is actually a prison of fear and immaturity. And if he doesn't realize it, he will grow old without ever truly experiencing life. This is not an accusation, but a reflection. And if you are still watching this, it means something within you resonates with this pattern, perhaps in someone close to you, or perhaps even in yourself. The path of the puer aeternus does not have to end in stagnation, but change is only possible when confronted with the truth. Puer aeternus is not merely a personality type. It is a profound archetype, a psychic force operating in the subconscious of many men, often mistakenly perceived as charisma, spontaneity, or a free spirit. But beneath this facade of lightness lies something more serious, an almost instinctual refusal to mature. Carl Jung observed this pattern in his patients and in myths across various eras. The puer appears as someone unwilling to leave the paradise of childhood, the psychic womb of the mother, where everything is taken care of, everything is protected, and everything is permitted. He lives in the shadow of a promise of a bright future that never arrives. He appears to us as an eternal scion of the heavens, bearing the mark of chosenness. Yet, in real life, he persistently evades responsibility for his own destiny. Each of us has undoubtedly met such individuals. They flit from one job to another, perpetually seeking something more elevated. They enthusiastically embark on new projects, only to abandon them at the slightest difficulty. They fall passionately in love, but disappear as soon as a relationship demands maturity and dedication. They love to discourse on spiritual growth, self-discovery, and freedom, yet are incapable of paying bills on time or fulfilling commitments for more than a few months. And this is not due to a lack of intelligence or talent. Often, the puer embodies brilliant intellect, a sensitive soul, and inexhaustible potential. He possesses a vibrant connection to creativity, inspiration, and a rich imagination. But it is precisely this that propels him into the embrace of illusion, compelling him to avoid harsh reality. He yearns to soar high without bothering to build wings. He dreams of love unburdened by obligations. He strives for success without effort. He wants to reap the fruits of maturity without paying the price. And when the world refuses to grant him all this, he rebels. He blames the system, his parents, life itself, but never acknowledges his own fault. According to Jung, the puer aeternus suffers from a rupture with the flow of time. He constantly resides in a state of not now, waiting for some significant event to occur, a brilliant idea to emerge, the one woman to appear, the opportune moment to arrive. He lives in a world of someday, not in the present. And because of this, he does not live a full life, but merely languishes, feeding on unfulfilled dreams that over time transform into a heavy burden. But there is another side to this story, for despite his immaturity, the puer possesses immense strength that should not be underestimated. He is a source of inner youth, boundless imagination, and the capacity for constant renewal of life. The problem is not with the boy living inside the man, but when this boy takes the reins. And this is precisely what we are about to explore. When the puer's light begins to dim and the shadow takes over. Let us now discuss the dark side of the eternal boy and how it gradually destroys everything around him. There is something alluring about a man entirely consumed by the puer aeternus archetype. He exudes lightness and spontaneity. He speaks like a true poet, dreams like a visionary, and lives as if time has no power over him. He disregards conventional rules, rejects labels, and attaches himself to nothing. And for many, this is captivating. He seems to embody freedom, and who doesn't dream of freedom in a world where we are stifled by obligations, attachments, and monotonous routine? But here lies a cunning trap. This freedom is merely an illusion, a carefully constructed disguise that conceals his greatest fear, reality. The puer is not truly free. He is a fugitive. He runs from pain, failure, rejection, disappointment, and the relentless march of time. He goes to great lengths to avoid the burden of responsibility for his own life. And every choice he avoids, every decision he postpones, every responsibility he shifts onto others' shoulders, only strengthens the walls of his prison, disguised as freedom. We have all seen this up close. He declares he doesn't want an ordinary job because he was born for something greater. But in reality, he is terrified of routine, hierarchy, and obligations. He says he doesn't want to be tied down to anyone, considering relationships a prison. But deep down, he is mortally afraid of opening up, of truly being seen and held accountable. He claims to hate rules, but in truth, he simply cannot cope with limitations. This freedom he so persistently offers to others is actually a childish refusal to confront the harsh realities of life. He strives to be eternal, light, and untainted. And for this, he must constantly be in motion, like a hot air balloon carried by the wind. But time is relentless, and sooner or later, the real world will demand its price. As Carl Jung said, The puer aeternus lives in a suspended state, as if hovering between heaven and earth. He does not want to come down to earth, put down roots, and deal with concrete matters. But without roots, nothing can grow. Without effort, nothing will blossom. And without pain, transformation is impossible. True freedom lies not in the absence of limitations, but in the ability to consciously choose what is worthy of our dedication. But the puer does not choose. He flees. And in this flight, he not only sabotages his own life, but also gradually destroys the lives of the people who try to love him. And this is precisely what we will now examine. The dark side of the puer aeternus, when bright hopes turn to destruction. Let us delve into the shadow that this archetype casts and understand how it erodes everything around it. At first glance, the puer aeternus archetype appears in all its charm, radiating an energy that captivates, inspires, and utterly consumes those around him. He is characterized by a fiery spirit, relentless enthusiasm, and unpredictability. However, over time, this dazzling brilliance begins to dim, and what once seemed like airy lightness transforms into a tangible emptiness. Sensitivity morphs into instability, and apparent freedom proves to be a mere escape from responsibility. It is at this moment that the shadow side of the puer aeternus emerges, the insidious shadow of the eternal youth. It manifests in a series of small but systematic acts of self-sabotage. The puer forgets his commitments, misses deadlines, demonstrates financial irresponsibility, impulsively changes his decisions, and breaks promises. Yet all his actions are cloaked in poetic justifications. I'm not ready yet. I don't want to force myself. I need time. However, behind these words lies a harsh truth. The puer is consumed by fear. Fear of growing up, of making mistakes, of social judgment, of the prospect of becoming ordinary. This is why he unconsciously sabotages everything that demands maturity and responsibility from him. This self-sabotage has a devastating impact on everyone close to the puer. His romantic partners endure agonizing suffering, falling in love with a man who seems incredible in his essence but is utterly incapable of real action. He declares his love but suddenly disappears. He dreams of a shared future but takes no concrete steps to build it. Family members experience disappointment, watching him squander his talent, intellect, and numerous opportunities. Friends grow weary of supporting someone who is constantly almost there, but never dares to take a decisive step. Beneath all this lies the oppressive feeling that the puer is incapable of moving forward, that he is trapped in an endless cycle of emotional immaturity. Like any archetype, the puer's shadow feeds on the unconscious. He does not realize that he is destroying himself, and even worse, he tends to blame others for his problems. He accuses the world of being boring, cruel, and full of limitations. He perceives those who have matured as betrayers of freedom. As a result, he increasingly isolates himself, naively believing that he remains true to his authentic self, while in reality, he is a slave to his own fear. Carl Jung asserted that enlightenment comes not through contemplating luminous images, but through recognizing one's own darkness. The puer's shadow should not be denied. It must be confronted directly. The problem is not that the puer retains childlike traits, but that this inner child transforms into a tyrant, sabotaging the possibility of living a full and real life. This self-sabotage has deep roots, as the puer rarely acts alone. Behind him there is almost always a silent figure who fuels his infantile behavior and perpetuates his imprisonment, the figure of the symbolic mother. No puer aeternus emerges from nowhere. Behind every man who refuses to grow up stands a silent figure, sometimes loving, sometimes suffocating, who shields him from the outside world but simultaneously prevents him from confronting it directly. In Carl Jung's analytical psychology, this figure is called the archetypal mother. When her presence becomes excessive, she transforms into a devouring great mother who, instead of giving life, traps it. This mother can be literal, a real, overly protective mother who did everything for her son, who never allowed him to make mistakes, who always cushioned his falls, but who unconsciously hindered the development of his independence. Or it can be a symbolic mother, a partner who takes on the role of caregiver, a grandmother, another female figure who protects, nurtures, embraces, and unconsciously demands eternal devotion in return. In such a case, the puer transforms into a man who seeks not a life partner in the feminine world, but a mother substitute, someone who will understand him without words, who will accept him without criticism, who will support him without any limitations. These symbiotic relationships seem comfortable, but are in fact deeply destructive, as they prevent confrontation with the real world. As long as the puer is taken care of, he doesn't need to act. He doesn't need to make decisions. He doesn't need to grow. He remains in a state of eternal emotional childhood, expecting the women around him to solve the problems he himself refuses to face, the call of adult life. The symbolic mother also often finds herself trapped in this game. She genuinely believes she is helping and loving, but in reality, she is fueling a cycle of psychic dependency that drains the life force of both. Carl Jung was adamant in his assertion: the greatest tragedy is when a mother refuses to allow her child to be born psychologically. This means that despite physical maturation, the psyche remains immature, infantile, seeking comfort instead of seeking inner strength. This dynamic becomes even more serious when the puer enters romantic relationships. He quickly falls in love, idealizes his partner, places unrealistic expectations on her, as if she should fill all the inner voids that he himself refuses to acknowledge. But as soon as the relationship demands depth, commitment, or responsibility, he runs away, distances himself, sabotages it, or even worse, blames the other person for everything. Because deep down, he never wanted a partner. He wanted a mother disguised as a lover. Breaking this vicious dynamic is inevitably accompanied by pain. It requires separation, the cutting of the psychic umbilical cord. But it is precisely this rupture that initiates the true process of individuation. Growing up is painful, but not growing up is even more painful. And this is what we will discuss next: the path to maturity and the inevitable price one must pay for exiting psychic childhood. It is time to look at the process of transformation, at how the puer can finally stop running and begin to build his own inner structure. In every man's destiny, a turning point inevitably arrives when the illusions of youth begin to dissipate. Unfulfilled dreams and unrealized ambitions weigh heavily, and the wounds from past failures in personal life leave indelible marks. The world, once seemingly full of boundless possibilities, suddenly narrows, and the man, still under the sway of the infantile, eternal youth, puer aeternus, is forced to face the truth. He asks himself, how much longer will I live as if there's an eternity ahead? This is a critical moment when the pain of immaturity becomes more unbearable than the fear of growing up. However, those who believe that growing up is an easy and painless process are deeply mistaken. Carl Jung, the eminent psychologist, did not mince words when describing this complex path. He asserted that individuation, the process of becoming oneself, is akin to psychological birth. And any birth, as is well known, involves pain, blood, and symbolic death. The first step on this path is confronting the collapse of illusions. It is the realization that life will not wait until you are ready, that there is no perfect moment, and no one will come to save you. One must acknowledge that the real world is not a hostile place, but the only stage where something real can happen. Growing up is not a betrayal of one's essence, but its creation. But first, one must mourn what has passed. The idealized youth, the unfulfilled dreams, the broken promises, and above all, the symbolic mother who embodies unconditional care and protection. Killing the boy within does not mean suppressing creativity, lightness, or dreaminess. It means ceasing to use him as an excuse to flee life's difficulties. Allow this boy to live, but under the guidance of a mature man. Maturity requires creation, structure, and consistency. It is the ability to say no when you want to run, to commit even when you crave freedom, to work diligently even when there's no inspiration, and to stay present in relationships even when idealization has faded. It is the replacement of the fleeting ecstasy of novelty with the transformative power of constancy. This is the secret. When the eternal youth is integrated into the adult man, he does not disappear but transforms. He becomes a source of creativity, insight, and intuition, but now guided by a mature, stable psyche capable of acting in the real world. This is true rebirth, when the eternal boy stops running from reality and begins to create with it. However, this process is not easy and does not happen on its own. Many men at this turning point feel lost, exhausted, and unsure where to begin. They recognize the need for change, understand that the time of carefree childhood has passed, but do not know how to take the reins of their lives. In the next section, we will address directly those who are at this transitional stage, those who seek change but do not know how to achieve it. It is time to face the truth and make the decision to grow up. If you have reached this point, it means something within you recognizes the urgency of what has been said. Perhaps you have observed similar behavior in your loved ones, or perhaps you have recognized yourself in every word. And there is no shame in this, for to some extent, each of us experiences the temptation but to remain a child in a world that demands maturity. We have all at some point shirked responsibility, dreamed of easy paths, and hoped that life would provide us with comfort before we were ready for difficulties. But the truth is simple and harsh. Life does not wait. It demands, it tests, and sooner or later, it presents a choice: to remain trapped in illusions, or to finally step into the world of accomplishment. This transition is possible only when you make a conscious choice to grow, not when you feel like it, not when everything is perfect, but when you courageously decide that it is time to stop running. Carl Jung said that a person who does not confront their inner demons will be doomed to meet them at every step. The eternal youth is one such demon, hiding under the mask of freedom, authenticity, and unrecognized genius, but in reality, undermining your foundations and preventing any lasting creation. He will not disappear on his own. You must confront him, acknowledge him, integrate him, and above all, choose to be stronger than him. Maturity is born when you stop waiting for salvation from outside and begin to save yourself, when you realize that responsibility is not a burden, but a path to strength, when you understand that true freedom is not permissiveness, but having an inner structure that allows you to choose what is truly necessary.